Welcome back to the Innovative Women's Conference. This is one of our innovation sessions, using business as a force for good. I'm thrilled to moderate this panel. My name is Jessica Yinka Thomas. I serve as the director of the Business Sustainability Collaborative in the Poole College of Management at NC State. I also have the opportunity to teach on the faculty there in the Management, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship Department, and also wear a third hat as president and chair of the board of Be Academics, which is a global network of educators and researchers who are teaching and studying business as a force for good. So I'm really excited about this panel, excited for everybody joining us. I just wanted to take a minute of gratitude and just say that for everybody joining us on this call, I think we're all so fortunate to have the time, the technology, and the headspace to be able to participate and engage in this conference. I really want to just take a minute to recognize that. I also wanted to give an incredible shout out to Grace, to Penny, and to Lavanya, and the whole IWC for really making this conference a reality during some really challenging times, and really for demonstrating, I think, a lot of the values and a lot of the principles that we're hoping to teach our students, who are incredible leaders, and we're really fortunate to have you as part of our Poole College team. So if you are joining us this afternoon because you're interested in learning more about how you can build purpose and positive social and environmental impact into your academic experience and into your careers, you are in the right place. If when you heard Lee Shamblin's Designing Your Life opening this morning and you thought about purpose and about impact, if you heard Gina Laughlin's keynote and you really took to heart her call to action about thinking about what you can do to improve the lives of others, then you are in the right place, and we're delighted to have you join us. I just want to share a few quick reminders, logistic reminders about this afternoon's sessions. So if you have any questions or comments, and we hope you will have lots and lots of great comments and questions, please use the Zoom chat feature. Our fantastic ambassadors, Mariam Diallo and Rachel Smith, will be checking the chat and will let me know when any questions come up. If you have an aha moment that you'd like to share and they'd like to be added to the conference notebook, just put AHA before your comment in the chat book. And finally, just make sure that your mic is muted, and I think ideally we've been trying to ask folks to turn their video off to kind of reduce the bandwidth. So except for our panelists and our ambassadors, please make sure you've got your microphones off and your mics and your videos muted. And just a final reminder that we're recording this session so we can share it with those who aren't able to join us in real time. So really fortunate to have this afternoon with us some really outstanding business and academic leaders who are on the cutting edge of sustainable business, who are really, I think, practicing the conference theme of radical collaboration in a way that is addressing local and global social and environmental challenges and creating value. And I think it's actually fantastic that each and every one of our panelists on this session is actually an NC State alumna. And so I think an incredible representation of our outstanding, alumni network. And so you're gonna have a chance to hear shortly from Lauren Ginsberg from Athleta, Maria Kingery with Southern Energy Management and Maria Kingery and Co., Pike from Larry's Coffee, and Dr. Deborah Hazzard from the Darla Moore School of Business at University of South Carolina. You'll have a chance to hear more about their stories, about their impact, and a chance to engage them with questions and comments. I wanted to start out just with a few minutes to set the stage for our conversation. I think this topic might be new or might be different degrees of understanding, and so I think it's important to talk very briefly about why this topic is so important and pressing, and share with you some common frameworks and some common language that I think will really help anchor our discussion. And so I wanted to start out with a question of why this is so important. So I think it's, I was recently reading Deloitte's annual survey of millennials and Gen Z, which is really trying to gauge what are some of the issues that are critical to those generations as they're exploring career opportunities. And some of the high-level results from that research was that they listed climate change and protecting the environment, income inequality, and unemployment as the top 3 issues that were top of mind for them. And I think you're going to see how those issues intersect with the topics that we're going to be discussing today, and the role that business can play in addressing those issues, and how they are increasingly today even more important and relevant. You'll see those topics really intersect with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I think Marm's going to share with you a link with a little bit more information about the UN SDGs if you're not yet familiar. But these are a set of 17 really, I think, audacious goals that we as a global community came together to lay out in 2015, and said that academia, policymakers, NGOs, industry, and countries and communities around the world, we're going to set these 17 goals, and we are going to find ways to radically collaborate to address these goals. And they range from everything from eliminating poverty to making sure that everybody has enough to eat, addressing issues around gender equality, other forms of inequality around people who are historically marginalized and disadvantages, as well as climate change, certainly a mega challenge. And the 17th and final goal is partnerships for the goal. And again, this idea of how can we bring together people across industries to really address those goals. And I'm excited that we're going to have the voice of industry and academia here to share with you some examples of how companies are really innovating to do just that in a way that's creating value. And so really quickly, who cares about these UN Sustainable Development Goals? Who cares about these issues, right? Beyond millennials and Gen Zers who are out there, right, looking for careers with purpose. We've seen recent research from Cone Communications saying that 86% of US consumers expect companies to act on social and environmental issues. This is a huge and increasingly significant percentage of the consumer population. We're seeing people like Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, who manages $7 trillion of investments, saying that they are now going to use sustainability as a lens through which they're going to evaluate which businesses they're going to invest in. And we're seeing the business roundtables, the CEOs of close to 200 of the largest corporations across America, right, saying that they are actually going to redefine, they're going to change how we define the purpose of business, right, as a purpose of business being focused on creating benefit for all stakeholders, not just traditionally shareholders, but customers, employees, suppliers, communities, right, in which the companies operate, as well as shareholders. And so I think oftentimes when I hear the question from students, from people I have conversations with around sustainability is, how do you measure this? And how do you know when a company is sustainable, is really embedding purpose into their business model? And I've been studying sustainable business for about 20 years now. For the last 10 years, I've been really particularly focused on a particular, I think, emerging and exciting new kind of framework for thinking about business. And that's a business model called B corporations. And you're going to hear that thread throughout our conversation today. 3 of our panelists are from certified B corporations. And these are essentially companies that have measured, quantified their impact across their stakeholders. And these are companies that meet the highest standards of social and environmental impact. So companies that have been certified as truly purpose-driven, the leaders when it comes to sustainable business. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves, but I really wanted to kind of give us, again, a kind of a common language, a common framework, and really set the stage for our conversation. So I'm going to first hand it over to Lauren Ginsberg from Athleta, and I'll give each of our panelists a minute or two to introduce themselves. So take it away, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jessica, thank you for such a great introduction to this panel. My name is Lauren Ginsberg. I currently reside in New York City, and I work for Athleta, which is a women's clothing store underneath Gap Incorporated. I am an NC State alum. I graduated from the College of Management with a degree in business finance, worked in investment banking for a few years, and decided to go back to school, and was amongst the first graduates of the GLAM program, the Global Luxury Management Master's Program. And after that, found myself writing a master's thesis at home, living with mom and dad, and trying to find my purpose. Moved into New York City to work for Gap Incorporated, and have been a general manager for retail stores there ever since. And why I chose to work for Athleta is specific to their B Corp messaging. The brand was B Corp certified about 3 years ago now, and I found that it was something that a lot of people still didn't know a lot about, despite Jessica's 20 years of time in sustainable resource and sustainable business. I wanted to be part of something bigger than just myself, and chose to join a brand that was doing more and putting people and planet first over their profits.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us, and thank you for that introduction. We're going to hand it over to Maria Kingery from SEM and Maria Kingery & Co. next.
Somebody was talking about being able to hit the space bar, so I tried it and shut myself off. Hi, Maria Kingery, delighted to be here. Thank you, Jessica, for doing this. I think this is such an important conversation, and right now is the perfect time for us to be having this conversation. So I am an English major from NC State who is an entrepreneur by birth. So both my mother and father were entrepreneurs. And so entrepreneurship runs in my blood. So there was never any question that I was going to start my own company. And then the question was what? We started our company, Southern Energy Management. My husband and I did in 2001, shortly after 9/11, when we looked around and said, okay, we were pregnant with our first child. And we looked around and we said, okay, what can we do to contribute to the world? We have been very fortunate to work for Burt's Bees very early in their steep incline to be one of the foremost personal care, all natural personal care brands in the world, a category that didn't exist. Mm-hmm. So we were foolish enough to think that we could have an impact of some, not necessarily that scale, but jump into an industry that had not really developed yet, and that was the solar industry. Along the way, early on, we discovered that solar at that time in 2001 was out of the reach of most people. So that was how we got into the green building consulting and green building more on the construction side of our business. And we're very excited that, again, that it happened the way it did, because now we have about 100 team members and about half work on sustainability, and we do sustainability strategy for communities, developers, individual builders. We also here locally do, and that we do nationwide, we also here locally do work with individual builders, homeowners, business owners to install rooftop solar. So what I can say about, and we've been a B Corp since 2009. We were very early. As soon as I found out about B Corporation, I was like, oh my gosh, this is who we are. It's who we had always been. And we were just so delighted to have found a community of people who have the same values and the same beliefs. And not only that, part of what we do is certify other companies around their energy efficiency and their green building, things that they say they want to accomplish. We're third-party verifiers. So for us, it just made sense that we would want a third-party verifier to tell us, are we really a sustainable company? And so that has really been one of the guiding lights of our organization. And we call the solar part of our industry, and particularly the solar coaster, because it's up and down and it's influenced by a lot of outside influences, which I know everyone on this call can relate to at this very moment. But it's actually something that we are, not to this degree, but we're quite familiar with. And from my perspective, our B Corp values, coupled with the sense of purpose we have around the work that we do, has truly helped us to sustain ourselves through many ups and downs.
And Maria, did you want to share a minute about Maria Kingery and Co., what you're up to next, especially as our panel sponsor?
Oh, I always forget about that. So yeah, you guys are welcome to reach out to me, Maria at mariakingery.com, to learn more. And I'll share some resources with Jessica that she can send out. But now, after about 15 years, day to day working in the company, I found a system called Entrepreneurial Operating System that really helped to codify how to run a business. Like, we had always had very strong vision, mission, but actually operating and running a profitable company, particularly one that is focused on how do you balance the purpose and the need to make provide, that third thing that millennials are concerned about, unemployment, right? How do you make sure that you can provide a sustainable workplace and really build a company that lasts? And so now I help other organizations who are purpose-driven to develop their own strategies, and I'm delighted to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria, and welcome. And next, we'll hand it over to Lee Pike from Larry's Coffee.
Hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be part of this panel today. I'm on the sales team at Larry's Coffee. We are a local roaster in Raleigh, certified B Corp. We just completed our 5th assessment. So I think we were right behind Maria and Southern Energy Management, being one of the first in the area for B Corporation. I manage marketing and events at Larry's, and also special projects such as the B Corp assessment, and also our For Cause coffee line, which benefits nonprofits in the area. And in doing that, I got really interested in the nonprofit sector, and therefore went back to NC State. I need to clarify, I'm not an alum yet, but I'm working on it. I just got accepted into the MPA program, so I would start that soon. But I've been taking nonprofit management classes for the past few semesters, and the community is great. Larry's Coffee is unique because they were a co-founding member of Cooperative Coffees, which is a green coffee buying cooperative, group of independent roasters across the country, who pool resources to not only import and handle the logistics of getting coffee to the consumers in America, but also help with educating, training, community development, innovative farming practices in sourcing countries. So I got into coffee because I love coffee, but realized very quickly that it is a great vehicle to learn about the world. First of all, you can sit down and have a cup of coffee and learn people's stories pretty easily. And then, you learn about agriculture, you learn about economies, you learn about different cultures and priorities. So it's been just a wealth of information that I've gained in working in the industry. Part of that was I was introduced to the International Women's Coffee Alliance, and I now sit on the global board of directors. That's been a gratifying experience, helping empower women in the coffee industry. And I'm also on the board of the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association. So I get to partake in the unique delicacies of the state, and hear about, the issues, challenges, joys of being a small producer in North Carolina.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lee. And finally, we will round out the introductions with Dr. Deborah Hazzard from the University of South Carolina. I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Hazzard.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I am really excited to join all of you today, and I thank the participants as well who have made the time to sit in on this session. I'm really excited about the opportunity to share some of the insights, but also to glean some of the insights from those that are on this panel, and I've thoroughly enjoyed everything that I've sat in on thus far. So hats off to everyone at NC State and Poole and Jenkins for everything that you've done to make this come to fruition. You've done a phenomenal job, and it really does demonstrate or illustrate innovation in action. So I wanted to start by saying that. As Jessica mentioned, I'm Dr. Deborah Hazzard. I am a native of Columbia, South Carolina, but I am a very proud Wolfpack alum. I graduated a long time ago, at least as I see it, back in 1991, before there truly was a Poole College of Management. We actually fell under the College of Humanities and Social Sciences back then, but Maria feels me, so she understands what it's like. But definitely that's where I did my undergraduate studies, business management major at that time. I started my career in banking and financial services shortly after having left NC State, went into a commercial lending program and did that for a while. So I basically have sort of approached my career like most people do, building a portfolio. I wanted varied experiences. I've worked public sector, I've worked private sector. I feel like it's really giving me a lot of interesting insights. I did decide to go back and get a doctorate. I did my MBA. I actually did an executive MBA and then later decided to do what is called a professional doctorate. So Georgia State University has a DBA or Doctorate in Business Administration program, principally for executives, and I did that program. But I'm really excited because it gave me an opportunity to transition into academia, which is where I am now. I serve as the Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at the Darla Moore School of Business at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina. I also have a faculty appointment, so I am a clinical associate professor. Oh, excuse me, I just gave myself a promotion. I'm a clinical assistant professor in the college or in the management department. So in addition to the associate dean's role, I also teach, and I have the pleasure of teaching things that I am really passionate about. So primarily my teaching area focuses on corporate social responsibility and stakeholder management, also diversity and inclusion. So those are the areas that I'm really passionate about. I will tell you that I have been passionate about those and actively involved in those areas long before they were popular and long before people really embraced them. But it's really exciting now to see that these areas are beginning to gain traction. So, you know, just a couple things about what we're currently doing at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm really excited that I have the support of our dean and administration there, and they really have given me some of the resources that I've requested. And so we've recently launched an inclusive leadership certificate program. It's geared towards business executives to really help them basically become much more familiar with diversity and inclusion in the workplace so that they can move the needle forward in their organizations. We have middle and executive level managers coming to us that really want to understand about diversity and inclusion. They want to understand how they can achieve a competitive advantage by, you know, basically having some of those competencies infused in their organization. So we're really excited about that. I've also been given the opportunity to launch a diversity and inclusion undergraduate business course. And I think that's something that's extremely important because I truly believe that as business schools, we are creating or producing human capital that's going to go into organizations and help make a difference going forward. So I think that we've really got to, it's incumbent upon us to really begin to look at what is in the curriculum that we are relying on to help prepare that human capital. And so diversity and inclusion is a very important topic. It's something that organizations and corporations are struggling with. So I think in order for us to effectively prepare that human capital to engage and really make a difference and use business as a force for good, we need to be able to ensure that those students are steeped in diversity and inclusion type knowledge, as well as corporate responsibility and sustainability insights. So with that, I'll sort of pause, but I am really excited to be here and looking forward to engaging with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hazzard, and welcome. And so, wow, can I just take a pause and say that is just an incredible breadth of expertise, depth of passion, and knowledge that we have represented on this panel. And so I'm really excited to jump in to this conversation. I am going to ask one question before we hand it over to the other participants in this session. So get your questions started. I'll really encourage folks to share questions that are specific to one of our panelists, maybe two, and kind of put their name in the question so we can take as many questions as possible. But go ahead and start sharing those questions in the chat field. So I want to invite each of the panelists to share with us what are the most pressing social and environmental issues that are facing your industry today? And can you share with us how your organization, how your company, or how your organization is using radical collaboration, right, to create value from addressing those issues? And so we'll start with Lauren. I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jessica. Everybody knows that the fashion industry is probably one of the most disruptive global industries to our world at this point, with fast fashion providing the most affordable, trend-driven clothing to our youth and, quite frankly, the entire population. It is really difficult for organizations to find a purpose when it comes to choosing ethical fashion. Typically, historically, it meant sacrificing style or your month's rent or being able to pay equal wages to those individuals who are producing these garments in our factories around the world. I can tell you that working for Athleta is a really eye-opening experience to the fashion industry, as the brand over the last 21 years of its existence has spent a lot of time really trying to pave forward and be the leaders in sustainable fashion. There are other people who are doing this at a higher fashion level that's not as accessible to the masses. But Athleta's mission is really around igniting a community of healthy, active women and young girls to live their limitless potential through the creation of beautiful, sustainable, ethically, technically made clothing. So we're saying that we're not going to compromise on a product to make it less beautiful or use a less of a superior fabric. We're going to create a product that is going to continue to look beautiful, remain technical, and perform as a performance and fitness brand that sells fitness clothing and athleisure for women and girls. I think it's really important that we think about how to continue to make this product while benefiting the earth and the planet. A lot of organizations, when they become B Corp certified, focus on lots of different areas of change or things that they'd like to go after. And for Athleta, we became B Corp certified only 3 years ago. And during that time, we knew we were already sustainable. We were making clothing from recycled materials. We were diverting waste from landfills. We were focusing on this empowerment of women, which is something that is in our mission and our values. We created a campaign called The Power of She, #PowerOfShe, and wanted to find a place in the industry that was different. So when we wanted to kind of assess where we were at, and I've heard this from some of the panelists previously, we went ahead and filled out that 200 question B Corp questionnaire and learned that without changing anything that we were doing in our organization other than our legal status at the time, we were successful in scoring a score, an 84, high enough to become B Corp certified, changing zero in our day-to-day operations and how we ran our business. And we, from there forward to today, have focused the last 3 years on 3 big focus areas in working towards additional product sustainability, even more than we had in place before, empowering women, and operational and energy waste, and thinking about how we're using our energy in our stores. And over the last 3 years, we have been successful in moving from only having, let's say, 37 to 38% recycled fabrics in our clothing to 80%, which is our goal for 2020. And we've exceeded that at this point. As of this most recent collection that is available online as of, I think, Monday this week, we are now 100% making all of our swimwear from recycled fabrics, recycled nylon. And when you think about empowering women, we have programs such as PACE, which stands as Personal Advancement and Career Enhancement. It's a fair trade organization that is operating in several countries where we have focus on gender pay equality and the ability to have our women working in factories go from seamstresses or factory workers to actually leading those factory spaces. And around energy and waste, we work to divert 80% or more of our packaging from stores, from landfills, as a way to create renewable energy for our headquarters, as well as our 200 now stores throughout the United States at this time. So back to the original question here, we're talking a little bit about Athleta and our organization and what we're doing differently. We are using our B Corp status to educate the consumer. That B Corp logo is all over our stores. It's on the inside of all of our garments as a way to propose question and dialogue with our customer and create and ignite a community that can learn and start to talk about really what the impact is of shopping sustainably or more sustainably than we did before.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lauren. It's really exciting to hear the work that Athleta is doing around setting very aggressive sustainability goals and really collaborating across the entire value chain to try to drive impact. And I just want to encourage anybody who's particularly interested in the apparel industry to check out the True Cost documentary if you really want to have a better understanding of some of the challenges that are faced by the apparel industry and why what Lauren has just shared is really truly innovative and impactful. So thank you, Lauren. So I'll hand it over to you, Maria, to answer that same question around what are some of the challenges in your industry and how you're leveraging radical collaboration to address them.
Yeah, thanks. It occurs to me when I made notes on this 3 weeks ago, the answer was different than it is today, right? So what are the challenges facing my industry? We are facing supply chain challenges, potentially. We're not seeing them yet. Shut down, as we all are. So those are some of the immediate challenges that we're facing. But beyond that, and I will say, and particularly in the solar industry, supply has always been an issue because of the choppiness of the industry itself in different parts of the world. And so we, as a small company, are very much affected by that. So to address that specifically, we joined together with several other B Corps. I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, that we founded Amicus Solar Cooperative. And Amicus is a group now grown to, I believe we're up to 56 independently owned solar companies from around North America who we have a purchasing cooperative. And so we all collaborate to buy and to negotiate together with large manufacturers that enables us to get pricing that otherwise would not be available to companies our size. What's been interesting about that is what started as a purchasing cooperative has really grown into something much deeper than that. And the collaboration that is now happening is sharing of best practices. So we now get together twice a year for retreats where we support one another in business growth and in supporting our teams, and we learn from what each other are doing. Just in February, we were in Charleston gathered, and we had several sessions around how do we support our team, diversity and inclusion. I mean, we look around the room, it's still mostly white guys, you know, in our industry. And so, you know, what do we need to do about that? How do we change that? And so this group of people is really taking on more, you know, together, much more than we could. I mean, that's, I think, the whole theme here, better together, right? Really embrace that in a very real way. And a couple of statistics, since we started the cooperative, I believe at least 6 of our companies have converted to B Corporation status. So we now have 12 B Corporations within our small group, and more people interested all the time. And several have become worker-owned cooperatives. So the issues that you mentioned in the beginning, when in your introduction, Jessica, really hit home for me in the work that we're all doing around climate change, unemployment, and income inequality. I mean, those principles, Southern Energy Management has not yet become a worker-owned cooperative. I've had, Marie Kingery Company has had 2 clients who have converted to worker ownership and to full cooperative status. And while it's not easy, it certainly is, we believe, the direction that we want to take our organizations. And it was the one thing with Amicus, one of the fascinating things is one of the key requirements that you have to join this cooperative and get the benefits. And there are tremendous benefits to being, you know, financial benefits to our organizations for being a member of this cooperative, but you must share our core values. And so it's been really exciting to see the collaboration around that, not just, oh, we're going to join this thing so we can get, you know, panels for 2 cents cheaper than we can get them otherwise, but it's really about how can we grow great companies. So that's a really obvious one. You know, there are other ones too. So I actually chair the board of that organization, of the cooperative. I'm also really involved in, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm an entrepreneur through and through. So I am deeply involved with a group called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's 14,000 members worldwide who have begun to really embrace the concept of the Sustainable Development Goals and are starting to get very curious and very serious. Some of them, and not all 14,000, but we're seeing, you know, just steady increased interest of how can we as entrepreneurs contribute to the world's greatest challenges. And so I'm just incredibly grateful for some of the mentors that I've had within that organization who basically, you know, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you love this stuff. What can we, you know, how can we collaborate? How can we teach others? So that's just tremendously exciting to me as well. And then other, you know, not.
We might have to cut it off there. I see
Okay.
we're a bit short on time, and I know we could spend the entire hour.
Thank you, Jessica.
Outstanding examples of, you know, collaboration across solar companies, collaboration across entrepreneurial organizations. And so thank you so much for sharing examples. We're going to keep moving. We'll try to keep these last 2 responses short so we can make sure to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Lee.
Great. Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. But like I said in my intro, you know, the coffee industry kind of touches a lot of different facets of business, and the economy and agriculture are 2 of our challenges these days. So we have a coffee pricing crisis that we're trying to solve as an industry. And that, you know, means that the coffee buyers are really responsible. They need to take ownership of paying a fair price to these coffee farmers and making sure that we're not exploiting you know, small farmers and their shareholders. So Cooperative Coffees, as our green importer, there's a fair trade minimum, but we pay more than that because we're dedicated to making sure that farmers are making a living wage. We also make sure that at Larry's Coffee, all of our coffee is organic and shade grown, so we're not destroying the agriculture, the native habitats in those areas. So, the climate change is also a very big challenge for the coffee industry. I'm sure that most people know, but coffee only grows in an area north and south of the equator called the Coffee Belt. And right now that is expanding because it's getting warmer everywhere. That will mean that in some places where coffee is a main source of income and revenue for families, they're not going to be able to sustain that. And it means that there will be new opportunities for people to farm coffee. But that transition and change is a challenge. So we have to make sure that we're, forward thinking and collaborating across the supply chain for those challenges. Let's see. We recently partnered with a local high school here for it's called District C, and we were paired with a group of high school students, and they presented some kind of business solutions to us. It was very inspiring to work with these young people. But they presented an idea that was really intriguing to me, which was Larry's Coffee facility is in a neighborhood, like a residential area. And so lots of neighbors come over to buy coffee or to just sit and hang out at the facility. And because we do things like harvest rainwater and we have solar panels and we do composting, we want to get those neighbors involved. So we started up a program where you can bring your compost to Larry's and put it in our bin. So, that's an accessible thing for everybody to do. And then you get a discount on your coffee. So it encourages people to really participate in the process. IWCA, the International Women's Coffee Alliance, is also doing a lot to, solve these problems of economic inequality for women, land ownership for women in the coffee industry. And their model is really innovative in that they don't have a program specifically where we go into communities and dictate this is how you're going to solve your problem. So this is a radical collaboration example of how we really try to empower communities to solve their own problems, right? So empowerment is defined by the people who are going to achieve it. So empowerment in one community can mean microfinancing to get a cart to get your coffee from a rural area to market, or it could mean cancer screenings for women's health issues. It could mean barista training or roaster training for different communities. So we really try to empower the women and families in those communities to solve the problems themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Lee, for sharing those examples of radical supply chain collaboration and community collaboration. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Hazzard. Do you feel like there are any major, issues that haven't been addressed yet by any of the other panelists, and kind of wrap up the conversation for us? And then we're going to take some really quick rapid fire questions from the audience before we wrap it up.
Well, I really just wanted to give one brief example from the higher ed context, and particularly just talk a little bit about what I see as a social justice issue that we have encountered, particularly on my campus, and I feel that others may have been struggling with this a bit as well. And it really relates to a fair admissions process, especially in light of the changing demographics overall. So when you talked about, when you posed the question about maybe some of the pressing issues that we're facing, that's one that we really have tried to put a lot of thought and energy into, and it has in fact required a lot of radical collaboration to be able to move the needle forward. One of the first things that we did is really recognize that we needed to look at the composition of our admissions staff, and recognize that oftentimes unconscious biases and just affinity bias was sort of playing into some of the students that they that they more aggressively pursued in terms of admissions. And so as we begin to diversify that particular office, as we begin to collaborate with other groups, collaborating with the local school districts, collaborating with, like, for our business school with FBLA and DECA and all of these other groups that are really preparing students or have identified students that have an interest in business, we're finding that radical collaborations like this are helping us sort of create this pipeline of students who have already demonstrated an interest in careers in business and industry. And so we're really trying to tap into that to create a pipeline. So I won't go into it. There are a number of different things that are happening in higher ed, including this the need to effectively prepare students to engage in business careers, but I spoke about that a little bit earlier. I do believe it's important for us to teach diversity and inclusion and ethics and sustainability and all of those things in business schools, because we can't ignore that in our business school curriculum and then assume that when people get into business environments, they're going to automatically understand how to engage through those particular lenses. So I'll sort of end with that, and then you can open it up for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hazzard. Preparing the next generation of business leaders is such a critical question, an important part of this conversation. Absolutely. So I'm going to hand it over to our ambassadors. Really quick questions targeted at very specific panelists. And we're going to try to take a couple questions before we have to wrap it up. This has just been an incredible conversation so far. So Rachel, Mariam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we have a few questions from the audience right now, and feel free, you guys, to keep sending them through. Sarah said, any recommendations on how we can turn an interest in sustainability and business for good into actions and knowledge for people with no prior background in that field? And this is open to any of the panelists.
Anybody have a really quick
That might want to answer.
Answer to that question? I see Maria.
So I was just typing in the chat. I was just going to say, I think that I'm looking at entrepreneurial companies that can be more flexible and are, it could be an area where you could actually create something for yourself that would add real value to the businesses. And being entrepreneurs, they're open to ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've seen a couple come up of people asking if it's necessary to get an MBA focusing in sustainability to enter that field.
Dr. Hazzard, do you have thoughts on that?
So I would just say that, when I came up, there were no MBAs focused on sustainability. So I think it's definitely a huge value add to have that. So if it's something that's open or available to you, I would say certainly consider it. I will tell you, just from my personal perspective, I have always sort of approached my education, my degrees in particular, from a more general perspective, and then just took specific courses to kind of hone in on areas that I was really passionate about. So that's just sort of my own perspective and how I've approached things. Most of my, endeavors have been pretty general, but if I had interest in specific areas, I just took coursework or obtained certifications. But I think it's really up to the individual and what resonates with them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. So we've now got 2 minutes left on our session. So what I'm going to propose is we're headed into a break after this session. Anybody who can stay on this call, please stay on this call. And I'm going to invite our panelists to respond to individual questions through the chat that haven't yet been responded to. Feel free to respond directly to everybody or to individual people who've got questions. I'm just going to take the last minute in this session just to share with particularly all the students on the call some resources and some upcoming opportunities. If you're interested in, while you're a student, getting more engaged and learning more about how you can embed purpose and impact into your academic experience here at NC State. I'm just going to share with you, thank you so much, Miriam. There's a link for courses that we've identified in the Poole College of Management where faculty are embedding sustainability. And we've taken much more of an integrated approach. So versus creating a concentration or certificate, my goal is that 100% of our faculty will be teaching about sustainability as it relates to marketing, supply chain management, accounting, HR. And so we've got a list of courses in Poole where faculty are doing just that. I encourage students to consider participating in our B Corp clinic, which is our semester-long consulting program where students work with local companies like Southern Energy Management, which we've worked with before, work with coaches like Maria Kingery, who served as a coach for the B Corp clinic. You get a chance to get some real hands-on experience working on sustainability projects. And just join our BSC mailing list if you want to find out more about events, opportunities. And finally, I encourage folks to reach out to me personally. My favorite part of my job is interacting with students and serving as a coach and as a mentor. So feel free to reach out to me directly over email, connect on LinkedIn. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Penny to wrap things up. Thank you so much for our incredible panelists, for our ambassadors. Fantastic conversation, way too brief. But hopefully people have an opportunity to continue this conversation offline. So I'll hand it over to Penny.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and to the rest of the panelists. That was one more inspiring conversation. So many powerful women sharing their stories. Thank you all for being here and sharing your time with us and with all the participants. And we have a 10 minutes break, but I can keep the room open. So if you want to talk with the panelists, and at 3 o'clock, I have posted the main room Zoom link for all of you to come join the takeover of Teja and Dimitris Chitam for a fire chat discussion so they can wrap up what we've heard throughout the day today. Thank you all. Jessica, you're muted.
Thank you, Penny. And thanks to the whole team. Thank you for keeping this room open. So it sounds like you said we can keep the room open for the next 10 minutes during the break.
Yes.
So maybe, can we keep taking questions?
Yes, if you want to, yes, of course.
Anybody who wants to stick around, and we can keep taking questions. I don't know, Rachel and Mariam, if it looks like you're still there, if you want to share with us maybe a few more questions that we haven't captured yet. I think we can definitely take those.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for everybody who can stay with us. This has been a great conversation.
Actually, maybe I think we answered questions from the audience. So maybe I'll pass it over to Miriam to some of those questions we pulled together beforehand. You there, Miriam?
Yes. Okay. So this question is for Maria. How was your experience with helping SEM become a B Corp in 2009?
I'll be very brief. It was not simple or easy. I had to convince my leadership team to do it. They thought, why would we do this? We have to focus on other things. But they were eventually, they got it, that this is the way business is going to be done eventually. And so we've now, 11 years.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Dr. Hazzard. What does it mean or look like to be radical in the sustainability movement for you?
So I think the way I would answer that, radical, particularly coming from a business school environment, radical means sort of rejecting the status quo, which in a business school environment is the purely shareholder approach. And I think moving to the stakeholder approach, multi-stakeholder approach, where we recognize that we need to be concerned with not just our shareholders, but all of the stakeholders that impact our business or that our business impacts. So that includes government, that includes the community at large, that includes the financial services sector, it includes employees. So they're internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, but just recognizing that we cannot be solely shareholder focused and be successful at this juncture. We really do have to look at the multiple stakeholders and how they impact our business or how our business impacts them. And, you know, it may seem like something that's really simple, but in a business school environment, particularly where I am, my students tell me that I am one of the few professors that's teaching the stakeholder approach, because most people talk solely about shareholders and bottom line, whereas I'm preaching triple bottom line and multi-stakeholder approach and all that. So I think that is radical, but I think it also shows that there is a need for us to collaborate, considering other insights, other perspectives, other experiences.
Thank you for that. I completely agree on focusing on the stakeholders. I wish that my business coursework had had that focus as well. Next question I have is for Lauren. What impact, if any, does Athleta's B Corp status affect other Gap Inc. brands? That's Old Navy, Gap, Banana Republic.
This is a great question. We actually created a new business called Hill City, which is the men's version of Athleta, back in 2017, I think it was now. And that business is also B Corp certified and was started from internally. It was not an acquired business. It was an internal business start. And with some transition in our senior leadership, Nancy Green, who was the backbone to Athleta becoming B Corp certified, was our CEO at the time of certification, is now the president and chief marketing officer for Old Navy. And we hope and believe that the future of Gap Inc. will be B Corp certification as a total organization, but we know that we are a little bit away from that, as it takes a lot of time to be able to change the supply chain from the, you know, Athleta is so much smaller on the scale that Gap Inc. represents as a total organization. But we do believe that the influence we have to sustainability practices is very great. And in fact, I shared the link to Gap Inc.'s sustainability page. You can go online and see what the entire organization is doing today. And a lot of that influence is coming from Athleta's path forward.
Thank you, Lauren. My next question is for Lee. Have you seen a shift in consumer interest in sustainability? What trends are you noticing that may be forging a path in sustainability in the coffee industry and consumer products more broadly?
That's a great question. And I'd like to echo what Maria and Lauren both said about becoming a B Corp. You know, using that as an advertising tool is great, because millennials and Gen Z, you know, it's important for them to know what they're buying and where it comes from, and holding the companies accountable. The B Corp assessment process is not an easy one. It gets harder every time you get assessed. So it forces you to really reflect on your business practices, to dive deep into, you know, the inner workings of the company and what you're doing for your community. And I think that the consumer really appreciates that. So I would say that, you know, being dynamic in an ever-changing world, obviously, you know, organic, fair trade, these are buzzwords that have been around for a while, but sustainable, transparent. I think transparency is going to be a huge marketing buzzword. It is already. And, you know, people vote for what they want with their dollars. And so if you can get in front of them and show them that you are holding yourself accountable and you are holding your supply chain accountable, they really respect that. They want to know that you're doing good in the world and you're not just trying to profit off of them and their money.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up there.
Yes.
Thanks for everybody who stuck with us through that last lightning round of questions. I just want to say one word in closing to all the students on the call. If you are not hearing, if you're not, you know, getting what you need from your existing courses, I encourage you to use your voice, right? And to use the power and the influence that you have as students to bring these topics into those courses. Don't wait for your faculty, right, to bring these topics in. Even though that's a big part of my job is pushing from this side, I encourage you to bring these questions up, to bring these topics up, and to demonstrate to your faculty that you believe that this is a critical part of your business education and your preparation as future business leaders. And so I want to make sure that you feel that you have a voice and to know the power that you have there, and encourage you to use it. I want to make sure everybody gets to that 3 o'clock session that I'm headed to. So I think this is a good chance to wrap it up. Thank you so much again to all the panelists. Thanks for everybody who stuck with us through these last few minutes. Incredible conversation. Hopefully we'll get a chance to pick it up again somewhere soon. And I know I will with many of you. So enjoy the closing session, and thanks to all the participants as well. Thanks again. All right. We'll let you go now, Betty.
Bye. Yeah. See you in the main room.
Bye-bye.